Hey everyone, today I just wanted to show you how to turn an AirTag like this, that's 8 millimeters thick, to an AirTag card like this, that's only 3 millimeters thick. So basically, this is a DIY kit that I sell in my Etsy shop, which you can purchase in the link in the description. If you've already purchased it, thanks for coming to watch the video, and let's get started. Alright, so before we start, I'm going to just outline the tools that we're going to need. First of all, you're going to need a soldering iron that goes up to 300 degrees Celsius. You're going to need a flush cutter. I found this one off Amazon. Make sure it's a flush cutter and not just a normal cutter, because that's pretty important. You're going to need a box cutter, some sort of heat gun or hot air station. You could also use a powerful hair dryer if yours gets hot enough. You're going to need a little screwdriver or a metal pry tool. Make sure it's metal though, because it's going to need to be pretty strong. You're also going to need a hot glue gun, and that should be it. So let's get started. Alright, so here's the AirTag. In your package, you should find something like this. So you're going to get this envelope, you can open it up, and inside it you'll find the sticker. Keep that for later. You're going to find 2 batteries, a pry tool here. This is you're going to use this one to push in and out the battery, so keep this for later also. And here you're going to find the AirTag card adapter. You can remove that, get rid of the glue things, and basically this is it. Yours might also look like this if you ordered the ridge replacement kit, but all the steps are exactly the same, so you can follow this video too. Okay, so let's remove the thank you sticker, and this is what it's going to look like. So let me just zoom in a bit. Alright, so basically first thing you're going to do is pop it out of the adapter, because it's a lot easier to work without the adapter. So pop it out, and then we're going to start working on the AirTag. So with the plastic, it's going to make a sound. You don't need to pair it or anything. Just remove the battery. Also, very important, don't use the CR2032 battery that it came with. Definitely use one of the 2 CR2025 batteries that I sent you, because this battery is just way too thick, and it's probably gonna either puncture this or just deform it, and it's not gonna work as well. So anyway, once you have this, you're gonna want to pry the top. I'll show you exactly where to attack it from. So I'll zoom in all the way, and you see these 3 prongs. You're gonna want to go to the side of them. Either side works, but I like to go to the right and go basically draw a virtual line here, and you're gonna want to attack right here. So let me outline this with a Sharpie for you. So basically draw a line, and this is the area where you want to dig your screwdriver in. So just hold it at a 45-degree angle, push it in, don't push too far, and just pry it out. Once you pry, you can insert it a little deeper, and just remove the rest with your finger. All right. Sometimes this speaker is stuck here. If it gets stuck here, just pop it out with your finger. Okay. In this case, it didn't get stuck, so you can pop it out like this, and it should just lift pretty easily, like that. And then this is the magnet part of the speaker. The coil is still here. So basically, what we're gonna do now is you can skip this step if you don't want to keep the speaker. If you want to keep the speaker, this step is very important. You're gonna have to use the hot air station to heat this area up so that you can pry under the coil without damaging it. So let's do that. I have my hot air station set to 256 degrees, but it's not really too important. You can just set it to whatever degree you like as long as it's hot enough. And I like to flip it upside down and just start hovering right on top of that. Try to stay in the center. Don't go too far, because there's components on the edges. So try to stay in the center. Once you see it start bubbling like this, hit it with a little more heat. Then you can turn it off and flip it over with your screwdriver. Immediately go right under, pry it up, and just go around. It's going to be very, very soft like butter. And that's why you need the heat. Alright, so now the coil is actually off. Okay, next step, you're going to grab your flush cutters and you're going to make 3 cuts, one on each. You see these white, like little white spaces here? 1 cut on each of them. 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to start noticing that this top piece is starting to lift out. So what you're going to do is grab it and just rotate outwards. Do the same with all of them. Go gently and slowly. You don't want to bend the board itself too much, because otherwise it's gonna break, and you don't want that. So what also helps here is heat. If you're too scared, and if it's being too hard, just flip it over, heat it up a bit, not too much, and then it's going to be very pliable and a lot easier to remove. Anyway, now that you have this off, you can throw it out. You don't need it. And now we're going to work just on this. Alright, so in the meantime, I like to usually turn on my hot glue gun to just get it ready, because these things take a while usually to heat up. Now you're going to take your flush cutters, and our goal right now is to remove these 3 terminals right here. The middle one is the negative terminal, and these 2 are positives, right? So we're going to remove them. The first one is really easy, the middle one. Just hold it. Basically I like to use these as just strong tongues, basically, or tweezers. So just hold it, don't cut it, just hold it, squeeze it like that, and just bend up, and it should kind of break off. Okay. I hope the camera is in focus. Anyway, once it breaks off, you're going to move to either one of these. I like to go to the left first. What you need to do now is hold this perpendicular to your pliers, to your cutters, and basically, I want to get closer here so you can see this. Hope it focuses. Alright, so basically what you need to do is, with the tip of your cutters, make sure your cutters have like a pretty sharp tip. With the tip, go in here, right here. Let me see if this is focusing. Alright, yeah. Go right here, just grab it, don't cut it, and just twist inwards. Twist while holding this. And once you twist it off, you should find that you have a little pad right here. This pad, it should stay silver. If it's silver, you did it correctly. If it turned brown, that means you ripped the pad out, and basically it's not completely done for, but it's going to be a little less reliable. There are workarounds I'm going to show you in the end of the video, but try to be gentle and don't rip it up. You're going to want to rotate it. Always, the motion should always be perpendicular to the board. You're going to do the same thing with the other one. So just grab it like this and just twist inwards. Grab it again, let go, grab it again, and twist inwards. and you see you have 3 silver pads. All right. For the middle pad, sometimes it's going to be flat, and sometimes you're going to have a little metal piece sticking out. If you have a little metal piece sticking out like this, don't worry about it. Just grab it with your flush cutters and twist it. Don't pull it up, just twist it sideways, and it should just remove the little piece that's poking out, and it should stay silver. So this is exactly what you want. You can pause the video here. This is exactly what you want. All right. So now, next step. This part. Okay, so let me show you. This part has an antenna here, right? You're gonna have to cut into it a bit, but you can't remove it. If you remove it, it's gonna mess up with the precision finding. This part has a little antenna. Same thing. Don't remove it. You just have to cut a bit of it. I'm gonna show you how after. This part, however, this doesn't have anything. So we're gonna have to remove the whole thing, okay? So what you're gonna do, sorry, it's out of focus. Hopefully focuses, come on. All right, so what you're gonna do is with your flush cutters, again, these are very useful here. Grab this piece right here and just twist outwards and break it off. You're just basically breaking off the plastic, right? Just repeat it until basically the whole thing is gone, right? This is nice and round. You don't have any plastic piece poking out. On the back, you're gonna find, ideally you want it to still look like this, where you have this coil that's still there. If you ripped part of the coil here, it's not a big deal. You're just not gonna have the NFC functionality, which that's not really that important, but it's totally fine. So ideally it would look like this. All right. Now for the tougher part is shaving off basically the excess. You see how there's a bump here on top of these capacitors? You want to basically make this wall and this wall the same height as the capacitors. All right. So to do that, again, this is why these need to be flush cutters, because you're going to make them flush with the capacitors and then basically just put them like this, flush with the capacitors, not under, not above, and just snap, right? You're going to snap, snap, snap. You're going to clean it up a bit. All right. I like to start with this wall, not the shorter one, not the longer one, because this is just easier to access, right? Because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, you might want to start from here. But yeah, so now if you look at the profile, just let it focus. Yeah, if you look at the profile, you're gonna see that this is basically flush with the capacitors, whereas this side is still protruding. Okay, you're gonna need both of them to be flush. So I'm just gonna clean this out like this. Okay. Repeat the same exact thing for the other one. Do this again. Don't go too low, because it's, again, this is an antenna. You don't want to remove too much of it. Throughout my testing, I noticed that it doesn't really affect the range that much if you remove from it, but it's still, you want to keep as much of it as possible while still being flush with the capacitors, right? So right now, you see that there's nothing protruding out. There's absolutely nothing. Everything is flush and it's all the same thinness. This is exactly what you need. Okay. One important thing here is if you can see, there's a little golden trace here that's connecting these two dots with this antenna. You're gonna want to make sure that this trace right here, sorry, I'm going off camera, this trace right here doesn't get broken. If it does, it's not the end of the world. It's still gonna work. It's just not gonna work as well. Okay, because there's still a second antenna, but you need this. You kind of really need it. You could try to solder it back on. It's a bit hard, but it's doable. All right. All right. So once you're at this step, remember this little speaker that you took out? You're basically gonna put it back in. So just pop it back like this over the coil. Make sure you don't snip the coil by accident. Sorry, this is taking a while to focus. Yeah, so just push it in like this, and it should look like this from the back and from the front. Make sure it's nice and flush. It should kind of like click in. It's not gonna really click, it's just gonna, like, you're gonna feel it, right? So once it's like this, now it's ready to put inside of this case. All right, so what these two pins are, the left and right, these are the positives, and this middle one is your ground or your negative. Okay, so what you need to do is this should already be up, right? The ground should already be up. The other two are going to be laying down. You're going to just lift them up like this so that you can slide this right under. Okay, once you slide it in, don't push it in all the way. You want to line it up before pushing it in. So what you're lining it up with basically is the two pads that you created. Like, you see this pad and then this pad. So once they're lined up, you're going to look at it from above, make sure it's perfectly lined up. Once it's lined up, just push it in. You're going to hear a click. It should fit perfectly, and just push it in on the table so that it's nice and flat and there's no bump in the back. Once it's nice and flat, what I like to do is just grab these so that they're nice and secure, like this. And with my screwdriver, little screwdriver, I like to push this down. Kind of, it's not too important of a step, but I just like to do it because it kind of secures them down, it makes them stop moving. So these should stay flat on the board, and this is going to be sticking up, the middle one. What you're going to do is pull it back as much as possible, because this is like kind of free moving. So pull it back. Once it's nice and tensioned, flatten it out onto the board so that they're all parallel to each other and they're all flat. And if you notice, I'm gonna get closer. If you notice here, you're gonna see that they're all actually more or less aligned right on top of their respective pads on the board. You see the middle one is ground, if you remember, and then the left and right are positive. So you want to make it doesn't matter if they're not 100% aligned, but just make them as aligned as possible. Once that's the case, put it down, and you're going to take your flush cutters and basically just snip them. You want to snip it right where the pad starts. So the edge of your cutters should be aligned with the board, like this. I'm gonna get closer. Like this. Be vertical, nice and perpendicular to the board, and just snip. Right? It might go flying, so definitely wear eye protection if you can, and do the same with all three of them. If you happen to cut these too short, I have included in the packet extra replacements. You're just gonna have to push them in yourself and bend them around, but you should get it. Okay, so this is how they should look like at the end. Okay, so this is exactly how they should look like. You should be able to see part of the pad under it, but it should be kind of partially covered by the metal wire, right? All three should be nice and neat right next to each other. And now is when you're gonna need to solder. All right, so I set my soldering iron to 300 degrees Celsius. This is what I recommend. And the tip that I'm using right here is kind of a big flat tip that's like at a 45-degree angle. I really like to use this one. Some people like to use the really thin tips. I've gotten comfortable with this. Use whatever you're comfortable with. Watch how I do it and then see what you think you're gonna be comfortable with. All right. So 300 degrees Celsius. One more thing I forgot to mention is flux. You're gonna need flux. It's gonna make your life a lot easier. I'm assuming you have it if you have a soldering iron. Also, don't forget ventilation. Whenever you're soldering, make sure you're in a ventilated area, or you have a fume extractor, because those fumes are not very good for you. All right, so you're gonna take your flux. If you have it in like a little tub, that's fine also. You can just apply it manually with like your screwdriver. I have it in like a little syringe, it's a lot easier. So just apply it like this. Apply a nice little ball on each contact. And it should look something like this. Yeah, not too much, not too little. Doesn't matter too much. You're pretty flexible. Okay, so once this is nice and hot, make sure to clean the tip. I'm gonna turn on my fume extractor, so I might make a little noise. Sorry about that, guys. Get your solder. Make sure to put it on the tip first. Make sure to get the tip nice and shiny with solder. Yeah. And I like to hold the board, rather the metal wire with the screwdriver, kind of just pin it down so that it doesn't move too much. And basically you're gonna take the soldering iron and just dab it. And it's pretty much going to do all the work for you, right? So as long as it's aligned, you see how it's nice and aligned, just dab it until there's a nice ball of solder on top of the joint, right? Do the same for all three connections and make sure to get fresh solder on each time. And I pin it down. I like to hold this like that and just connect it like this. And then the last one. All right. Now all three of them are connected, and I'm going to show you the final result. So this is what it should look like. They should all be nice and secure. What I like to do is just kind of try to move them around slightly with the screwdriver and see if they move. If they don't move, then you should be good to go. Again, make sure there's no bridges between them, because that's gonna short it out and it's gonna be pretty bad. That's not gonna work. So if you get bridges, it's fine. Just remove the solder, do it again, remove the solder, do it again until you get it all nice and separated. Just make sure you use flux, because if you don't have flux, it's going to be a nightmare. Now, one last step, and this is actually optional, but I like to do this because it actually doubles your reliability for this. What we're going to do right now is connect, kind of bridge these two dots right here. Okay, you're gonna have here. You're gonna have a set of 3 dots, and here you're gonna have a set of 5 dots. Okay, forget about the 5 dots. You're only gonna care about the 3 dots. Okay, the top 2 dots, or rather the 2 dots closest to these terminals, are the ones that you want to bridge. Don't bridge it with this one, because these 2 are the positives and this is the ground. You're basically bridging the positives so that if one of these connectors fails in the future, you're always gonna have a connection here, right? So it's not gonna stop working. So I like to do this. You can, if you're really sick and tired of doing this, you can stop right here and it's going to work perfectly. But I like to do this just for kind of security's sake. So again, soldering iron. For this one, don't use flux. I've tried it with flux, I've tried it without. Actually, this is one of the rare cases that I actually don't like using flux, because it just kind of messes it up. So this is, again, a bit tricky. So if you don't want to do this, feel free not to, but there's really no specific way to doing it. I just like to attack at a 45-degree angle and just kind of tap it. You see, one tap, as long as you're covering both at the same time, you should get a bridge. So let me focus here. You see right here how there's a bridge between these two? and make sure you don't bridge it with the bottom one, okay? Again, this might take a few tries, so if it doesn't work, if it really, really doesn't work, just remove the solder, make sure none of them are bridged, and you should be fine, all right? But ideally, you'd want to bridge the top two. So what I like to do also, because if you see in the side profile, it's kind of sticking out a bit. You see this shiny metal thing? It's sticking out because it's kind of like a pyramid shape. So what I like to do is just snip the top. Make sure that you don't actually cut into the board or anything. Just snip the top of it, and these two should be shorted to each other. And we're gonna actually check that with a multimeter right here. So if you want to make sure your work is good, take one end, connect it to one pin, to one wire, and the other end to the other wire. So these are shorted out, which is good. Now if you want to make sure also that this is not shorted to ground, do the same thing but connect it to ground, and you should hear nothing, which is good. You can also do it here. If you hear something, then you messed up somewhere. Remove the solder, look at it, make sure there's no bridging points, and redo it, okay? Again, so this is it. This should be a fully working AirTag now. So you're gonna take a battery from here, remove it like this. So you're gonna basically take the battery and slide it in like this. And you hear that? So that's good. That means the AirTag is working. So, and now what I like to do is grab this tool, tear it off, and use it to kind of push the battery in. Once it's all the way in, this is how you're gonna use it, okay? Now, this is just for testing purposes. This is not final because we're gonna put hot glue over this to kind of secure everything in place, but we're just testing it before we hot glue it just to make sure that it works. Once we make sure it works, you're gonna connect it to your iPhone, make sure everything works, and remove the battery. Once you remove the battery, you're ready to hot glue. So by now, your hot glue gun should be ready. So just take it like this and just kind of go ham. Just hot glue over the whole thing. Don't worry about it sticking up because we're gonna cut it down with the box cutter in a bit. Again, make sure before you hot glue it, make sure that the board is actually flush or even sunken a bit below the case around it. If the board is kind of popping out and then you hot glue it, when you go to cut it, it's gonna hit a capacitor and that's not good. Make sure you kind of push it with your fingers down and just look at the side profile. This is before you glue it. Look at the side profile, make sure nothing is sticking out, no capacitors are sticking out, and then you can hot glue it. Once it's like this, I like to let it cool down a little bit, not all the way, but just a bit. And you're gonna get your box cutter, extend it like about this much, and what I like to do is heat it up using your hot air station or hair dryer, and that's gonna make it just cut through it just like butter. So just heat it up nice and hot for a couple minutes, or not that long, maybe 30 seconds. Alright, so once it's nice and hot, be careful and just cut through this like that. Kind of slide it across, and you're gonna use the case itself to kind of flush it out. And you're gonna get this kind of excess residue of hot glue. You can wipe this on like a flat object and it should be fine. You can clean it up a bit more, clean up the edges, make sure nothing is protruding, and now this should be nice and flat. Okay, so as you can see, the side profile, nothing is popping out and it's really thin. and that's what you're looking for. So you could leave it like this now, just let it dry and then use it if you like the aesthetic of the board being exposed in that. I like to, this is why I included the sticker, I like to hide it. It just makes it a little more clean, matte black. Again, it's personal preference. If you want to hide it with the sticker, wait for it to cool down. Don't do it while it's still sticky because it's going to be really hard. So I'm going to wait for this to cool down and I'll be back. Alright, so now it's nice and cooled down. It should be a nice solid piece of plastic. Shouldn't be flimsy. You're going to take this, peel it off from the thick side. Alright. And kind of hold it like a slice of pizza. That's how I like to imagine it. Kind of curve it like this and align this edge with the edge of the device. Once it's nice and aligned, you can also align like this edge right here. Once it's aligned, you can push down and you're done. This should be it. If you want to put it back into the adapter, just put it on the table and push down. And this is it, you're done. You can put your battery back in. It's gonna make the sound and you're good to go.